So the third model that we have for division is our array area or area of an array problem. And so this looks really similar to when we saw the area of array model for multiplication. And indeed, we're going to start it the same way. We're going to start with a number of rows, and we're going to multiply that by a number of objects per row to get the total number of objects. So this is really easy to tell this one from the other ones versus the other two models we went through, the equal grouping and the fairly sharing. Those two are easy to confuse. This one is usually pretty clear. So this problem says the area of the floor is 130 square feet. And by the way, we write that as feet squared, but we say it as square feet. And then it says if the width is 10 feet, find the length, right? So we know when we saw this before, we would have been given the length and the width and then asked to find the area. When it's division, it just means you're missing one of the measurements, but you have the area. So we know the area is 130. We have the width. We're trying to find the length. Or you could also see problems where you have the length and you're trying to find the width, right? Remember though that when we do our setup equation, so the way that our book does it is it does it in terms of rows, right? So this first number is going to be a number of rows. And then that means the second number, since the second number always has the per part in it, is going to be the number of objects per row. Now, what are the objects? Well, we've seen problems where we have like band members or stars or, different types of objects. In this case, each of the objects is just a square, right? And specifically, it's a square foot, right? So we could say that this is going to be square feet per row. And if you want to write it feet squared, you could also write it like SQFT, abbreviate it. I'm going to go ahead and stay consistent with what they've done because they've used the feet square abbreviation for square feet. So I've got a number of rows times the number of square feet per row, and that should give me, so again, my units here after the word per match the units on the first number, and the units before the word per match this total. So this would be square feet total, or you could just say square feet is fine. So then let's go ahead and fill in the blanks here. So what do I know? I know the area is 130 square feet. So that's going to be this total. I know the width is 10 feet, right? And so if I look at my drawing here, so typically the width would be like the left-hand side. And if you look at the drawing here that's already been done for us, sure enough, there's 10 squares going down that way, right? So this would be 10 feet. And I know the area is 130 square feet, meaning that there are 130 squares that are shown in this figure. And I'm looking for what that length is, right? So in terms of rows, do I know the number of rows or do I know the number of objects per row? Rows go across, so I can see that I actually do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So the rows is what I know here. So 10 rows times what I don't know is how many square feet are in each row. So that's going to be my question mark. So then from there, I could solve this equation by saying, well, how do I figure out what I multiply by 10 to get 130? I would divide 130 by 10, right? So that would be the equivalent division. To use the picture, so this is one thing that's a little misleading. When I see your picture, I'm just going to see your completed picture. Your completed picture is going to look just like this, right? But what is this going to look like along the way, right? Because if you're actually using the picture to find your answer, you don't necessarily know how to draw this picture, right? So when I draw the picture live for a student to help them solve this, I would say, okay, I know I have 10 rows, right? So if I have 10 rows, that means that there's going to be, you know, a row here, and there's going to be another row here, and another row here. And so I know there's going to be 10 of those. So that means I actually know that I'm going to have 10 squares going along the left-hand side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I'm doing this with a student, this is where I would start. So I would start with, okay, we know there's 10 rows. So let me go ahead and have 10 squares going down. And then I just need to figure out how long to make each of these rows, right? I don't know how many squares to put in each row. And so then I would just start counting. So I would say, okay, let me go ahead and add another square to each row. So let me do, I'm going to make this a little easier on myself and just draw it and then split it up to make it a little easier, but it's the same idea, right? So let me do another row, or sorry, another column of 10. So now I have 2 objects in each row, or 2 square feet in each row. So I had 10 here, and now I've got 20, right? 10 more is 20. And I'm going to keep doing this, right? I'm going to keep adding 1 more square to each and every row, to all 10 rows. And then I would keep doing this until I get to 130, right? So I'm going to keep doing this. So now I've got 4 objects in each row, and that gets me to 40 squares. If I do another column, now I'm at 50 squares. Another column, I'm at 60. This would get me to 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, and finally 130. So, and I would go ahead and I would draw all of this as needed, right? So if a student catches on, you could certainly stop, right? But I would go ahead and keep drawing all of this as needed. And so in the end, like when I see your picture, I'm not going to know that you did it that way, right? I'm just going to see this, right? I'm going to see your completed picture, which is exactly what I've drawn here, right? So I would label this and say, oh, this is 10 feet going this way. And I know that I've got 130 square feet total, whether you write that on top or you write that above. And so then I'm trying to find what this measurement is. And then I would just count, right? So to find the answer, I would count how many columns, right? Or how many objects did I put in each row? And I would find then that the length here is 13. Again, I could just do that 130 divided by 10, but I could use the picture to find that answer. So my length is 13, and since this is a story problem, it has units. In this case, that is 13 feet is the answer. So you could also say 13 square feet per row. If I stick with exactly the same way that we did it, right? So our unknown value was the number of square feet per row. However, the way that they asked this, since they said find the length, I would probably go ahead and write it as 13 feet. So technically either is correct.